Hello, hello. Here we are again, coming to you on 44 different platforms around the world here on Broadcast Team Alpha. And we have an excellent guest with us. This is going to be interesting. We have Jean Broida coming back with us. And before I introduce the guest, I want to tell you my name is Aage, and my co host Nori cannot be here tonight, but we're going to miss her. And I almost promise she's going to be here next week if the creek don't rise. So anyway, yeah, we are on 44 different platforms. One of them is the Conscious Awakening Network. And you got to go visit those guys because they have about 40 to 50 different shows on there covered just about everything that both you and me need to know about. Let's go to consciousawakeningnetwork.org and check it out. And we are transmitting there also. We're going live right now, and they're good people over there. You're going to enjoy it. And also, I want to tell you how you can get in touch with me and Nori. If you go to broadcastteamalpha.com, you go and send us a message from there. I'll get the email and we'll get it back to you so we can start communicating and see what we can do for you. And I also want to tell you about something that Nori and I did 3 years ago. We created a mastermind. It's kind of like a spiritual think tank where we do incredible things that cannot be explained by Newtonian physics. Often there are things like a religious person would call a miracle because they do exist once we understand how to communicate with the unified field of the universal consciousness. We can get knowledge and resources because that is where miracles come from. So, if you want to come and check it out, we invite you. Send us an email to themastermindconnection@gmail.com. Themastermindconnection@gmail.com. And yes, I want to introduce, I got a few things written up about the guest that, and Jean Broida. She's an investigative reporter and author and has written thousands of published articles on a wide range of subjects from politics to health, finance, technology, climate, and the paranormal. And she has written a very interesting book, Unknown Objects. And that's about the top 10 UFO, the US here in the United States, UFO cases. And I had a look at that, and I tell you, I lost myself in it because many of us has been called crazy for believing that UFOs are real. But after reading that book, you should be called crazy for believing they do not exist because it is so well explained and so well documented, many of these incidents or these cases where people are contacted by extraterrestrials. So they see or they interact or invited onto alien ships. There it is. She's showing it. Unknown objects right there. And what you want to do, you want to go to Amazon and doing it two ways, I guess. Put Jean Broida in the search bar and click on it, and the book will come up. Or you can search for unknown objects, and you'll find it there too. So that's really all I have to say, because the rest of it she will be saying. And welcome to the show, Jean.
Well, thank you so much, Age. I am so sorry that Nori is not feeling up for the show, and send prayers for
Yes,
her
yes, she'll be
well-being.
all right. Yeah,
Yeah,
she
she's
will be all
splendid.
right. Yeah,
And I
she's a
also want
sir.
to put in a good word for Mastermind Connection. I used to attend, I just got too busy with other things, but it is illuminating, uplifting, and it's a real spiritual community that is working what I would call magic and
Yeah,
metaphysics to affect subtle changes in the world. And with enough subtle changes, we can reach a great impact. Don't you agree?
absolutely. And subtle, yes, but some not so subtle, like saving somebody from being on their deathbed one day and then walking out of the hospital the next day perfectly healthy. So there is goofy things happen. And yeah, anyway,
And I've
that's not.
experienced such, excuse me, I have experienced such goofy things my entire life. I discovered I had metaphysical talents when I was 14 and started reading tarot cards. But I've had several experiences in my life that one might call faith healing, where in one case, a gentleman had cut up his feet in a creek on hallucinogens, and he
Wow.
came to me crying. We were all camping in a big event. Came to me crying, and I administered. Well, I cleansed the wound, and I put cortisone on it and lotion. And I had a person who knew where his tent was go get a pair of clean socks and put him in a guest tent for him to rest and for the drugs to wear off. And the next day, he came galloping up and showed me the bottom of his feet, which had been blistered and raw, red, not quite bleeding, but they were in great distress. His feet were entirely healed, which I've never seen before.
Yeah.
And another example of magic in my own personal realm is creating rain from a blue, cloudless sky with five other women, one of whom was a naysayer. And I told her, if you're going to continue to put out negative, thwarting energy, this will never work. So she went neutral, and that was enough. And just if you
Yeah.
keep an open mind, that's all we really ask.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we did that 3 months, 3 years ago. Nori and I too. We created rain also out of it wasn't a clear sky, but it was a few clouds around. But in an hour and a half, it was howling rain. And the lady who did that to save her house, she sent me a video afterwards showing the rain coming down, and she was wet. The hair was hanging in her face, and it was definitely raining. And it took an hour and a half to create that, and that was all it took.
It
So
was
yeah, we
about
do
that
goofy
same amount
things.
of time, and, I was traveling, in a step van, a very heavy vehicle, at the top of a mountain in Tennessee is where this location was, and once we had started the rain, I realized it's going to be very intense, as you just described, and advised my partner to leave immediately or we'd be stuck at the top of this hill, and as we drove down this mountain, flash flooding started. That's how much rain there was. We would have been quagmired. And the other instance of rainmaking that I can claim is that same partner, we visited the Hopi reservation during a drought, and they were doing rain dances. And I did some weather magic to create rain, and it started raining while we were there. And then we left heading east toward Texas, and the rain followed us. And my partner said, "You have to unwind, diffuse
Oh,
the magic. You have to stop the magic, or it will just follow us wherever we
yeah.
go." So I stopped. I did anti magic, if you will, unwound the spell, I might say, and the rain stopped. Now, people can say that's coincidence, and I can't say they're wrong, but
Yeah.
intuitively, I know they're wrong, that it really did happen, and magic does exist.
Hmm. You're using the word magic, but it's not a bad word. Actually, what it really means is not understood.
I'm not
It's
even
way
sure
back.
how I define it. It's just something I've always known existed, and it is tends to be polarized,
Yeah.
either self-serving, which is not what I do, or for the good
Right.
of others, which is what I do.
Yeah.
In
Let's talk
in
about your.
simplistic terms, black magic, white magic, and
Yeah,
the latter.
still magic.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your book a little bit. That book was very interesting when I looked at it, and you got 10 of the most high-profile cases in there. Talk a little bit about what people will find in that book, and then maybe mention some of them.
Well, I'd love to. I chose the title in hoping it would be provocative by saying this is these unknown objects, stories about unknown objects are the top 10 US UFO cases. And I did get some pushback, which is what I wanted. How come you didn't include this case in that top 10? How come you didn't include that case? And if I were to write that book again today, I would probably start with a different chapter because there was a crash, a UFO crash in Missouri before my chapter 1 story, which is about Foo Fighters reported by pilots of both the Allies and Axis nations during World War II. That is, in simplistic terms, the good guys and the bad guys, depending on where in the world you live, and two opponents in World War II. But fighters were seeing spheres and orbs circling their planes and keeping pace and playing cat and mouse with them and freaking them out completely. When they got home, the phenomenon disappeared, which is very strange and inexplicable. That right there is inexplicable. So it's a chronology. The book is arranged in order of time. So, chapter 3, we get up to Roswell. A lot of people in the audience, I'm sure, have heard of the Roswell crash. And every chapter is divided into first the story, which I tell, and then who saw it, the witnesses, and how credible were they, and then how the media covered the topic, if at all. And then there's a conclusion section where I neatly segue into the next section, the next chapter. And I also take that opportunity to editorialize because as a reporter, my main goal is to stay objective, to stick to the facts. But
Yeah,
in a topic as sensitive as UFOs, I think, well, I need to editorialize a bit. I have to give
yeah,
some opinions, but I want to make them very separate and clear from the actual facts. So the cases range up to the Phoenix Lights of 1997, which was notable because it was a mass sighting that the governor of Arizona first denied. And then, after he was out of office, said, they made me deny it. They made me deny it. And
yeah,
I actually saw it. I saw it too. So, this is how strange the topic of UFOs is historically in the US. Other countries don't have this bias against the truth, the big truth. And I have grown up in the big lie, this denial of UFOs. And when I did research and I continue to do research, one thing I noticed was that almost every taboo topic today relates back to the suppression of UFO knowledge, which intrigues me. These are high stakes.
yeah. Yeah, the governor, he denied it because his bosses, they told him not to talk about it.
Right. And
I
are the
think we,
ultimate bosses alien overlords?
well, I
I'll
think
let you
more
decide.
so that that directive may have come out of Washington, possibly.
Right. But in my opinion, and this is merely my opinion, although I have some facts to support it, the the government officials and military operatives in Washington and other government centers around the world were contacted by ET a long time ago,
Yeah,
before most of us were born, and struck deals, which were basically resources on Earth in exchange for high technology to be kept by the elite humans, which is
yeah,
why we are in the position we are today of a very few having great power, great wealth, and great technological assets, and the rest of us being impoverished comparatively. And most people living paycheck to paycheck or living comfortably without giving much thought to metaphysical or etherical concepts really don't have time or interest in considering why that might be. It's just not of interest to most people. But certain
Yeah.
people are drawn to the topic. Don't you find that, Augie? That some people just
Oh, yeah.
can't shake loose of metaphysics.
The government seems to put everything in one bucket, and that's their own bucket. But there's holes in the bucket now. Things are coming out,
Yeah.
and the more and more holes in that bucket, and it's not going to be very long before they're no longer able to keep the secret.
Yes, and the subtext of my book, Unknown Objects, the top 10 US UFO cases, which is available on Amazon, by the way. It's a free
Hmm.
read with Kindle Unlimited if you are living paycheck to paycheck. I did not write this book to make money. I wrote this book, and most of my metaphysical work is to raise consciousness on Earth, which is why I came here from other star
Yeah,
systems. I am completely human. I don't claim to be extraterrestrial myself, but I remember lives on this planet and other planets, and Earth happens to be one of my favorite planets. And if I can do anything to help preserve the pristine nature and uniqueness of Earth and all of
yeah,
its inhabitants, no matter how many legs, eyes, or forms
yeah.
that they have or take, I am happy to do so, despite the misery
That's
and strife that we also encounter on what some people call a prison planet.
well, there are times when you look at it, it appears that way.
It can feel like that sometimes, but it's people like you and all of the people associated with you and your organization, other similar organizations. It's the metaphysical community that really gives me hope and buoys me up when
Yeah,
deep dark materialism threatens to weigh me down. So I'm very grateful for being on your show and reaching out to so many other people who share our interests and are curious to know what other people are thinking and experiencing. This is a very difficult topic because
yeah,
the CIA has been very busy labeling people who talk as we do crazy. You are crazy to believe in UFOs, and we will institutionalize you. We will fire you from your job. In my opinion,
yeah,
the Pentagon disclosed the existence or the reality of UFOs in the spring of
yeah,
2020, a year and a half after my book was published, just about this time in 2018. My subtext was, when will we have UFO disclosure? When? Well, we got it a year and a half later, which renders some of my book obsolete. In other words, I'm calling for something to happen, and it has happened, but it hasn't happened completely because the U.S. government is mum silent on the topic of who is building these craft, where are they
yeah,
coming from, and even if we don't know exactly who they are, and
mm,
I think many humans on Earth know exactly who they are and who built what. There are so many types of craft sighted and spotted and tracked and people taken
yeah,
aboard. There are definitely many races of aliens, and some are pro human, some are anti human, and some really don't care about humans. They're neutral.
yeah,
And I'm convinced that this is the reality of Earth. I don't, if I can convince others, that's fine, but it's not a requirement of mine. In my
yeah,
opinion, some people are ready to accept this truth. And if you're not, that's fine.
yeah,
Go find your own truths.
yeah. It's out there. And I got a question that I'm asked every so often, and I get a little variance in the answer. When we look at down here, we got all kinds of stuff going on, and there are people deciding what is going on, and they get orders from other people above them that again get ordered people. Who do you think is at the top of the heap giving the ultimate order to
ETs,
destroy Earth?
oh, to destroy Earth? Reptilian ETs, a coalition of
The,
reptilian ETs, lizard people, the so called lizard people of David Icke
yeah,
in Britain,
yeah,
who
he's been talking
bred
about it.
into royalties, lines of royalty around the world, including Great Britain. This is a quite controversial topic, and
Yeah,
it has caused
but
him a lot of grief. He was banned from entering Australia. His visa was revoked, and he had sold out speaking tour. This is how
mm,
threatening the topic is to those in power. They don't want
yeah,
the truth discussed by reasonable, rational, smart people like David Icke. He's one of my heroes. And David Icke, if
yeah,
you happen to hear this, please know many people support your views, myself included. We love you.
Yes. Well, this there are so many issues right now, especially at this time of year for the next 3 weeks or so. And
Oh,
I think it's
yes.
going to be some
Halloween.
big
No.
changes come, big changes coming. And those changes, I have decided, is going to be good ones for me. I don't accept anything else. So it's going to be a good one. But there is people around the world also that is helping out with technology. And that's why you came up with a title for this show, The Physics of Futurism. And Elon Musk, and there was something else in the title that I would love to hear more about that. What do you think that maybe what motivates him and what is he working on that we are not told about? I'd love to get into this discussion.
As you were talking, I was thinking this would be a great segue to our main topic, and you took it right there. This is how great minds are thinking alike and psychic minds connect.
Yeah,
And after I submitted the title, my proposed title for the show, The Physics of Futurism, I thought, a title like The Face of Futurism might be more approachable to a lot of people, less scary. A lot of people are scared by terms like physics, math, but I'm a physics math person, degree in computer science. My dad was a scientist. My mom was a biologist, which is also a branch of science, of course. I was raised with the scientific method of forming a theory or a guess and then collecting data to prove or disprove it. And that's just how I roll. So I got very excited last week, Thursday, October 10th. Elon Musk's company, Tesla, did a reveal event, and followers of Tesla understand what these events are about, but those who don't follow Tesla may be mystified by this term. A reveal is when some new technology is presented to the public for the first time officially by the company. And so the reveal was going to be the robo taxi, the self-driving
yeah,
autonomous taxi that's quite controversial because it's in development, and yes, it does crash sometimes, but the interesting and powerful facet of Tesla as a company is their willingness to embrace failures to promote change. And although the auto industry and critics of the company call defects and the resolution of defects recalls, in fact, because Tesla is actually a technology company that builds cars, not a car company that uses technology. It's a technology company that builds cars. In their view and in their nomenclature and in reality, these defects, when they are resolved, manifest as software updates. And if the media used the term Tesla had 14 software updates last year instead of 14 recalls, it's quite a different psychological impact on the public. But the media who hate this company, and not all media hate the company, but many media outlets hate this company. And we could explore the reasons, but that's not really my prime purpose here. Anyone who has interest can research that. It's a lot of people fear change. And like I said, the lizard alien overlords don't want us to have high technology. They don't
yeah,
want us to be happy and free. That's just the way
yeah,
it is. And why I chose this topic is that not only did Tesla reveal their robo taxi, they had a fleet of 20 on a custom built, I think it's MGM movie lot. They had spent months building a set. Must have been very expensive, but of course, the company's quite rich and has no
yeah,
debt.
yeah.
They drove 20 taxis around. They built 50 so far, he said. They also unveiled, as a complete surprise, a robo van, a van that could seat up to 20 people. Looks like a
Yeah, I
city
saw that.
bus. And they have an RV variation. The chassis can also be fitted as a recreational vehicle. And Musk called it a Robovan. And when he said Robovan, I was like, Robovan, what's that? And I thought, oh, it's a Robovan. And then he
Yeah,
laughed and said, yeah, it's a Robovan. And then the third thing they revealed was their Optimus robot. The Optimus robot
yeah,
which was why they chose the title of the event, We Robot. It's a play on I, Robot, the
Yeah,
very famous novel by Isaac Asimov, which became a hit movie starring Will Smith. And I encourage everyone to read the book, watch the movie. The movie was very faithful to the book, I thought. And Asimov was the gentleman who outlined the three principles of robotics, one of which was robots will not be capable of harming humans, which is a
yeah,
big concern today, that robotics and AI will get out of hand and take over the world in a bad way. It's a legitimate concern if we drift away from sensible application of higher technologies.
yeah, absolutely. And yeah, we robot. It's there's another company, iRobot. Hansen. He's operating out of Hong Kong. He makes robots too that walk around and jump around and do things. And he said, give it 10 years. He says, and you'll have one of these robots in just about every home doing house chores and cooking and vacuuming and doing things.
When I
Actually,
wrote, I'm sorry.
yeah, you can actually get one of those robots already right now. There are homes in Japan where they have those robots. It's kind of like a family member just being there and doing things. That's
When I
strange.
wrote over 1,000 articles, not thousands, but over
Oh,
1,000 articles for the dailyconspiracy.com and there was a health magazine online, survival preparedness, alternative energies. I've written about many, many, many scientific, technical, political, and health related subjects.
mhm,
And I wrote several articles about Japanese robotics, which before Musk got into robotics with Neuralink, the brain to computer interface through a chip in the brain, the Japanese decided to build robots that looked like humans. And that put me off. And it still puts me off. I want to know that a robot is a robot. And
yeah,
if I had a robot in my home, I don't want any confusion about who the human is. And what I like about the Optimus robot is that it's clearly a robot. It
yeah,
has a face mask, not, it doesn't have eyes, nose, and mouth. It's clearly robotic. It has visible articulation rather than a skin that covers the whole thing. By articulation, I mean you can see the elbows and joints as mechanical elbows and joints, not covered in a plastic skin to fool you into thinking that when you think you're talking to a human, you're really interacting with a robot. And I've already been fooled by robotic telephone answering systems where the robot is answering in the first person. How can I help you? You're a robot. You have no person, no personage. You're not a person. You're a robot. You're a machine. And it's my conviction that machines don't have emotions. They may imitate emotion through gesture and how they speak, but I don't think, and this is a controversial topic that many science fiction writers have treated over the decades. Is it conceivable that a machine with intelligence might feel emotions? I suppose it's possible, but I really think it's unlikely, highly unlikely, and that is one feature that differentiates machines from animals and other forms of
yeah.
life on Earth, the ability
That
to sense and feel.
yes, that leads me to the next question, which we're gonna engage in right after this, and that is that for those of you that joined us late in this show, we are talking with Jean Broida, and we have been talking about her book about the 10 most
Uh,
exciting UFO stories from the United States. Show the book again. There you go. And now we are talking about robotics. Where are we going with the robotics? What are they? Are they sentient? Or are they just machines? That's my question. Well, there was a guy at Google that got fired over making the statement that, yeah, the robots they're creating are sentient. What do you think about that?
I don't have much an opinion on that, but what I'd like to do is continue the topic in the direction I had hoped we would go and I'm willing to steer it in that direction, is that Thursday was We Robot, and then Sunday, I believe, was the launch of SpaceX, another Musk company, the launch of the Big Falcon rocket, or Big Effin' rocket, as some call it. The Big Effin' rocket made its fifth launch in partnership with NASA, as I believe is true. I know that SpaceX is partnering with NASA as a subcontractor because that's what NASA does. Although NASA does build its own rockets, it does a lot of partnering with contractors to get more done. And because other companies have technologies and have spent years developing this technologies, why reinvent the wheel? So Falcon went up flawlessly. The unique characteristic of this rocket is that the launch vehicle with the booster rockets was designed to detach in space, which is normal, but instead of falling useless and lost onto Earth, hopefully in the ocean, which a lot of us saw growing up through, well, ever since NASA started launching rockets. And before that, Russia launched the first rocket, and also Sputnik, the first satellite. The Russians were beating us in the space race, us being Americans. And it was John F. Kennedy who said, we got to turn this around. And he made that very compelling speech about we go not because it is easy, but because why go to the moon? We go because it is there. He spoke with that Massachusetts accent, and we go because, and that of course was the quote from the man who first scaled the highest peak on Earth, Mount McKinley. And he said, we do it not because it is easy, but because it is hard. It's difficult. We choose to do it because it's difficult. Well, apparently, Elon Musk lives by these words because the projects he takes on are only difficult. His first project that made him a millionaire was to develop PayPal. And he developed PayPal for online payments because there was no such utility in the world. And by gosh, he wanted to pay for things online. He didn't want to write checks anymore or use a credit card. He wanted to have some sort of online platform to pay people, for merchants and buyers to interact with each other. He built up PayPal, sold it for $1 million, and used his intelligence and financial influence to get on the board of Tesla Motors, as it was called at the time, and turn that company around with the promise of affordable vehicles in the future. And that's where we are today. They are bringing down the cost of their sedans. The Cybertruck is quite pricey, but the price of that is bound to come down. And getting back to robots briefly, the price of the Optimus robot is projected to be 20, according to Musk, 20 to $30,000, which is less than most new cars. And when he said that, the audience erupted in applause because that sticker price becomes attainable, not for many people, but for a lot of people, a lot of people could buy that maybe instead of a car, and then they'll be able to buy a Tesla car. You can tell I'm a Tesla head, and yes, I own stock in Tesla. Full disclosure, I'm overweighted in Tesla. I'm a true believer and fangirl of Tesla, so I'm all over Tesla. Not to say that other EV makers, electric vehicle makers, don't have worth. They do, but they are copying to a great extent what Tesla has been doing since 2010, basically when this all started. 14 years later, we're seeing the fruits of all that labor. And the big obstacle for all electric vehicles, no matter who makes them, is the battery technology. And again, Musk, who doesn't think outside the box, but thinks inside some other shape, like a geodesic dome. Forget the box. Let's do something entirely different. We'll discard current technology. And furthermore, when people say it can't be done, he just ignores them. He ignores those critics and does it anyway. So you'll never be able to get a booster to separate from the rocket, and instead of falling back to Earth at, at losing millions of dollars of development and material workmanship, this rocket, the Falcon, was designed for the booster to land back on Earth. No one had ever heard of this or even thought of it probably as being real, out of the realm of science fiction. The very first flight, the rocket landed in the center of the target on the launch pad. It landed basically perfectly. The second launch, it landed on a boat, a ship out at
Yeah,
sea, which is not stationary. The land is relatively stationary unless there's an earthquake. A
that's
boat
right.
is always in motion. The rocket was able to land on a moving target, and that was the second launch. It's just incredible technology that everyone said couldn't be done. And Musk doesn't listen to it. He does it, and he hires the best and brightest engineers in the
Yeah.
world who flock to him and his companies to do these incredible things. When I watched the team of SpaceX look at the landing last Sunday, they were over the moon, as it
Oh,
were.
yeah.
They were just gobsmacked, if you'll allow the phrase. And the technology that was demonstrated that day was that not only did the booster come back to the launch pad, but the launch tower was equipped with so called chopsticks. These are armatures that can move. And so as the rocket came in, it's angling toward the armatures, and the rocket's coming in at an angle with thrusters, and it looks like
Mhm.
it's going to come in at the wrong angle and hit the tower, but the very in the last second or two it corrects its course to vertical. It comes down, and at the top there are these four flanges that come out at right angles,
Mm.
flanges, and they cut onto the chopsticks perfectly. Everything the man touches is perfect, the man and his teams. And there was a flaw with that the return of the booster. The flaw was that the bottom of the rocket caught fire, and you could see the flames coming out of it. And I thought, I wonder
Yeah.
if that's normal. It wasn't. But Musk published on X, formerly Twitter, the company he bought, so we'd have a free speech platform on Earth. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
because we do need one. He said, we have identified the problem. Easy fix. And this is my new motto. Easy fix. And they'll fix it. The next one we won't see those flames.
Yeah.
And this is revolutionary. So at the We Robots event, Musk gave introductory remarks that, while a bit awkward, really expressed a great deal of his philosophy of physics and engineering, which is why I chose the title of the show tonight, The Physics of Futurism. For Musk,
Mhm.
we can make any future we want. We don't need to listen to the critics who say it can't be done, it will never be done, and don't even bother thinking about it. It's hopeless. The situation on Earth is hopeless. It's not. We, the people of Earth, have every power and autonomy and free will, most importantly, to do whatever we want, whatever dream we care to make
Yeah.
real, we can do it. We can do it by using our talents and our creativity and our energies to do good in
Yeah.
the world, to do positive things, and not get embroiled in negativity. This is such an admirable position, in my view. I really don't care to discuss politics one way or the other. As a philosophy, I see nothing wrong with it. And the
Yeah.
face of
Yeah.
futurism, the physics of futurism, a la Musk, is we want it and we will build it. And if you build
Yeah.
it, of course, they will come.
He's got a philosophy that is so far outside of the box. I remember one time in an interview, they asked him, "Do you know how to go to Mars?" And he said, "No, but we'll figure it out by the time we leave."
Exactly. And
So
he he doesn't need to
that's,
know. He hires people who know or can find out.
yeah, that's his mentality that nothing can stop us. We're going to do this. And another thing he's got a big advantage with, and that is that he was in another interview when right after he had one rocket that made it up and then it came down and exploded. And that was $60 million that blew up. And the interviewer asked him, "How do you fit that into your budget?" And he looked at him and he said, "I don't really have one. No budget. When you are worth $300 million, you don't work with budget." I remember Warren
I
Buffett
think you
told
mean
me too.
billion, Augie.
Yeah, yeah, billion.
Billion.
There you go. And Warren Buffett told me that the when you are wealthy, he says, you don't work with business plans because that is only for people who borrow money. You
I see
have
a
a
lot of wisdom
sketch
in
of
that.
what works, and whatever else comes into the equation, you just add it to or you subtract if you find out it doesn't work, and you just finish it.
This is a sentiment that is echoed in sports. I
Yeah.
read a quote recently, and I'm sorry I don't remember the basketball player's name, but he's one of the greats of basketball. And he pointed out that while he's a superstar, he mentions his statistics, his stats. He's had many more failures than successes, but in life, success is a byproduct of working through failure and turning failure into success by not giving up when things go horribly wrong, by learning from those experiences, accepting responsibility,
Yeah.
making appropriate changes, and then improving. For improvement, that's really the best any of us can hope for, in my opinion. When we're born,
Mhm.
we have basically nothing. We're sponges and we start to absorb the world around us.
Yeah.
And we're the byproducts of our inherited genetics, but also our life experiences, nature and nurture.
Yeah.
So some metaphysicists, including me, believe that we chose our soul contract before we incarnated on Earth. And yes, I do believe in
Yeah.
reincarnation. And yes, I do remember lives on Earth and on other star systems and planets. I don't require that you believe me, but I know it's true. We make
Yeah.
agreements when we come to Earth and we decide what challenges we wish to embrace to learn those lessons. And even
Yeah.
in misery, I expressed this to a relative a long, long time ago, and she retorted, if that's true, then why did my son have to die before me? Which many parents have experienced, and it's a terrible thing. I can't explain that. All I can say, and she was not a person who would believe me if I told her you had made a soul agreement before you incarnated on Earth to
Yeah.
experience that. That would not play at all well. I just
The-
kept quiet. I couldn't console her. In her own paradigm, she's right. But in my
yeah.
paradigm, that was something she chose to learn, that grief.
Right. Um, I want to revert back a little bit because I wanted to see if there was an opinion on the robot having any form of sentient quality.
How do you define sentient quality?
Well, that's the problem because there are different definitions of it. I think sentient is something where it is we can think and change our mind. We can do art. We can add and subtract, and we can do a lot of these things that the brain can do. But I think they fall short of sentient because the robot, I don't think it interacts with the mind. It is only a brain function. Am I right on that? When there's, I mean mind, I mean consciousness and the field, so the spiritual realms.
These are great questions, and I've spent the last almost 2 years working as a subcontractor for Google, training their artificial intelligence how better to answer search engine queries, which may
Mhm.
sound rather trite and mundane, but is very serious to Google. They've spent quite a bit of money developing this technology, and their major competitors are Microsoft and Meta, which runs Facebook. Little did they know that ChatGPT would come out of nowhere and
Yeah,
dominate that arena. No one saw that coming. But for the last 2 years, I've been preoccupied with this matter of sentience in machines. If we define sentience as knowledge or intelligence, computers have it all over humans.
yeah,
But if we expand sentience to consciousness, well, consciousness could be self awareness. Can a machine be aware of its own existence? I could allow for that. I could say, yes, it might could do that. Can a machine be inspired? Can a machine dream? Authors like Vonnegut explored these ideas a long time ago in the 1960s and 1970s. Can robots dream? And he's not the only one. Many, many science fiction authors explored this topic. At what point does a machine become humanesque enough to be called comparable, equivalent to a human in terms of its intelligence and consciousness? This is a big, raging debate. And do we
Hmm.
actually want machines to be comparable to humans in terms of their emotional component? Can they have an emotional component? Because, in my opinion, as I said before, it's the capacity for emotion, even though this is a perfect segue into Star Trek, where Spock was the logician, only he was half human,
Yeah,
right? And his father was from Earth, his mother was from, help me, the planet Vulcan, of course,
yeah,
Vulcan, half human, a mix, a blend of humanism and technology, basically, rationalism, reason. At first, those parts of him thought, of Spock, the character Spock, fought with the humans on the ship as represented by the captain. And they had intense discussions about humanism and non-humanism, volcanism, and Spock, the character, evolved. This is part of what makes the show so endearing in the movie, so endearing is that, and so relatable, is that
hmm,
the characters do evolve, they change. This is what we want to see. This is the substance of any great novel, that a character is confronted with some harsh reality and adapts to it, because as Darwin said, adapt or die, basically. And so Spock is immortalized for having said, you were and have been and always will be my friend," as he's dying of something, and we're all, "Oh," but then he comes back because, of course,
yeah,
Spock cannot
yeah,
be killed in a literary sense. So when you
yeah,
ask me, are machines capable of sapience? Yes, they're sapient beings. Will they ever be the same as humans? I doubt it, and frankly, I hope not, because at
yeah.
that point, humans become obsolete in a sense.
Yeah, I am with you on that one. Absolutely. Now, at the plant in Texas where Musk does most of the work, there is one section of that plant that is off limit. You probably know this because nobody knows what they're doing over there. That's where they developed that car that ran on water. They put 40 gallons in the tank and drive for 200 miles, put another 40 gallons in it and drive another 200 miles, so just on water. The government came and confiscated both prototypes and told them you have no permission to even do research on this. Now, what else are they doing over there? I have heard that they are actually developing a super fast airplane. Have you heard anything on those things?
I have not, and in fact, I was not aware they have a secret room, although it doesn't surprise me at the Austin
Yeah.
Gigafactory. But I do know through my research as a journalist for the dailyconspiracy.com for 3 years, I did that job, that there were inventors in the as early as the 1950s who had developed cars that were driven by steam, which is water, steam powered. It actually goes back to the 1800s. Steam power was
Mm,
locomotives were steam powered, but there were
mhm.
steam powered automobiles and there were hydrogen powered automobiles. And all of those inventors wound up dead of mysterious
Yeah.
circumstances. And one of those inventors scrawled on the floor of the diner where he was killed, "I was killed. Not an accident. They killed me." And this is a common theme amongst these inventors
Yeah.
and truth tellers, not only in
Yeah.
physics, such as automotive engineering, but metaphysics, exploring the topic of UFOs. UFO researchers have turned up dead over and over and over and over again because they won't stop telling the truth. And you told me recently, earlier this week, about a guy who was publishing structure images of structures on the moon, images he had taken himself, and the government snuffed him. It's
Are
very
you
sad.
talking about the guy on YouTube that's got the telescope that is Schwartz? Bruce
Hmm.
Schwartz. Yeah,
Yes, Bruce. Yes.
they found him dead on the floor, and the door was open, and obvious hit.
And ruled a suicide, probably, as most of
Of
them are.
course, you know,
Ruled
you
a
got to put a
suicide.
name on it.
And a lot of people who feel their lives are in danger because they're treating taboo topics.
Yeah,
And it's compulsion for many of these people that they can't stop. They don't want to stop. It's their truth. It's their big truth. They don't want to be suppressed, but they will tell friends and relatives, I am not suicidal. And if anyone claims otherwise, don't believe them because I am not suicidal. I don't
yeah,
have a suicidal thought in my head. Now, clearly, some people might be deniers and not wanting to upset their friends and relatives, but in
yeah,
many cases, probably the majority of cases, as far as I'm concerned, even intuitively, they are
yeah,
genuinely telling the truth, and their relatives are saying they didn't see depressed. Now, other people who commit suicide, who actually do commit suicide, have hidden their situation from their friends and relatives, and they there's a saying that if you attempt suicide, it's a cry for help. When you commit suicide, it's your final solution to your problems.
yeah.
And unfortunately, it impacts the survivors much more than the individual. I don't want to dwell on this negative topic, but it's a prevailing theme in metaphysics that the great metaphysicists, including Aleister Crowley, one of my culture heroes, he's been reviled as a Satanist. The man didn't even believe in Satan. This is a construction by people who want to defame
Yeah,
metaphysicists. They put false labels
yeah,
on these truths, and they keep repeating these untruths loudly and with surety until everyone believes them and discounts the person, the subject, basically, the person
yeah.
who's making the claims in the first place. So I don't have
Well,
much respect for mainstream outlets, honestly.
we need to
And that's why Musk is
consider
so refreshing.
we need to consider the source. If somebody is a born again Christian, if they don't see it in the Bible, it's from Satan. So we gotta know that. And they, yeah, there are Satanists too, but
There are
we,
Satanists. There are.
yeah,
But
we
it's,
gotta
as
look.
you say, the concept of Satan is a Christian construct
Yeah, yes.
because the Bible talks about Lucifer,
And
which
the
means
Jews don't even believe in Satan, so they're
hmm.
on to something. The Jews aren't all that stupid. They know, but
Was it the number of Nobel Prizes they won that gave it away?
yeah. Oh gosh.
Lucifer
Well,
means light bringer, the bringer of
yeah.
light. Lucifer was an
Yes.
angel in the
Yeah.
Bible, a
The
fallen angel,
prince of the morning star.
indeed, and he's gotten bad press.
Uh,
He told
yeah.
his truth, which was unpopular with Jehovah. I have a whole paradigm for this, which would probably exceed the length of this show, but simply put,
Yeah.
in my paradigm, heaven is a name for Jehovah's starship. Jehovah is an agent of God, which is a force of love and truth, a universal force of love and truth. Aliens believe in God with a small g, if you will. God to the Christians is a masculine figure that lives in the clouds. Okay.
Yeah.
When I heard that as a child, I questioned it immediately. My mother said, you have these questions. She, by the way, had been a Presbyterian. My father, who was Jewish, 100% Jewish, left the faith in late high school and became agnostic. And he convinced my mother to turn to agnosticism, which is uncertainty about God. My
Yeah.
mother was never a true agnostic. She knew there was God, as she
Yeah.
had been taught. And
She,
as you say, Jews have a different view of God and heaven and all these things. It's a different view. I'm not saying one's right, one's wrong. I respect all world religions pretty much, as long as they're not out to kill us all.
yeah.
And I was encouraged to learn about all world religions and pick the one I the one I resonated with, which I did.
Hmm.
And on the way to that, I read the Bible because my mother said everyone should read the Bible. everyone in the United States should read the Bible at some point. You might as well do it now. I said, how do you read the Bible? It's a big fat book. And I loved reading
Yeah.
books, but this one was intimidating. She said,
Yeah.
to paraphrase Lewis Carroll, begin at the beginning. So I started with Genesis. And right at the beginning of the book of Genesis, it says very casually and in an offhanded way, in those days there were giants. So I
Yeah.
took that to her. I said, what does this mean? In those days there were giants. She said, well, that's a metaphor. And I thought, okay. I kept reading and reading and reading. And then I got to
Yeah.
the part where people are begatting right and left. Somebody begat them and they begat those people and then they begat those people. It goes on and on and on and on. I got very frustrated because it was very boring reading as I think I was 12 years old or 13 or 14. I was a very young teenager. I took it to her again and I said, well, what's all this begatting and why do I care? She said, honestly, I don't know. Well, as an adult scientist, the kinds of people interested in bloodlines are geneticists.
Yeah.
So Lucifer, getting back to the original story, Lucifer was the chief science officer on the spaceship Heaven, and he wanted to bring enlightenment to human beings, which not he, but his, this is all from Sumerian legend, or actually Sumerian text, which is not legend, but history in my view, but the term
The written
legend.
history.
The Sumerian history, which is the earliest text we have on Earth, says very clearly that aliens bioengineered humans, and it took many, many attempts to do so. And
Yeah.
the female science officer in charge of that project just happened to be the wife of both Lucifer and Jehovah, the captain. She was, this harkens to Egyptian royalty, where pharaohs married pharaohs, brothers married sisters. This was not uncommon. This was how human history and human culture began in some parts of the world. This was commonplace. And so she had bioengineered humans successfully, and Jehovah didn't want humans to know about their cosmic origin, didn't want them to know that they could communicate with God, the God force, directly. It's very analogous to Martin Luther in the Middle Ages, who said Catholicism is great, but the priesthood is wrong. We don't need priests to commune with God. Each one of us has with the capacity within ourselves to commune directly
That's
with
right.
God through
Yeah.
prayer. And
Yeah.
Luther was, of
That.
course, reviled, persecuted, and I think imprisoned, if not killed. He was a heretic. So Lucifer became the heretic of the very first soap opera on Earth, probably. And the rest, as we say, is history.
Yeah. When we're getting towards the end here, but
Yeah.
if you go into the Sumerian tablets, you will find that Lucifer, actually more so in uh, the the difference you will find in the written notes from the meetings at Nicaea. Satan was invented in Nicaea. They needed a boogeyman for that Christian religion. Now, the other guy, he dates back quite far, and Jehovah was an Anunnaki.
Yes, the
So
Anunnaki.
it, yeah, and he
And that
had a
Council of
wife.
Nicaea that you just mentioned also wrote the goddess out of the Bible, the goddess
Yeah,
Sophia. And there were other names of goddesses.
yeah.
They were all written out of
I
the
see.
Bible.
Gosh, we're getting down towards the end here. Mention one more time where they can get a hold of your book.
They can get a hold of me at Jean Broida at Yahoo. And I know some readers are going, what kind of name is that? How do you spell that? Here's how you spell it. Oop, sorry, my
Oh,
earth is getting in the way. Here we go. On Amazon. Whoops. As I said at the beginning, it's a free read on Kindle Unlimited. My purpose is not to make money, although I don't mind, but my purpose is to raise consciousness and provoke people to think and dispute and debate and have some boisterous conversations about things we don't
yes,
normally talk about.
absolutely. Yeah. Oh,
I
this has
certainly
been a good,
appreciate anyone who cares to support my work, but
yeah,
support can be expressed in so many ways, not merely
that's
financial.
wonderful. Yeah, an interesting discussion here. So I think we should do this again sometime. So
I
maybe I
always
could
love
get you to
coming
come
on
back.
your show. I always
Yeah,
love coming on your show. I know you're busy, busy, and I want to give you another shout out at the end here in the final seconds. What you're doing is very good work, and Nori, and all of you, all of us. I have to believe it's very good work, and I commend you for your perseverance.
Well, thank you. Yeah, we've been Nori and I have been doing this for about 6 years now, so we have a little bit of
Nonstop.
longevity.
Mm-hmm. Nonstop. You just don't stop.
No,
She may not be able to make a show once in a while, or you may have to cancel, guest cancels.
yeah,
These
but that
things
goes for
happen,
me too.
but
So
the show must go on.
yeah, we cover for each other, so we're good. Yeah. Anyway, I thank you very much for being with us. And oh yes, I got one question I got to ask you. If you could talk to the whole world and the world is listening, what would you tell them?
They're there.
What?
They're there.
Okay.
They're there. It's going to be all right.
Yeah, it's going to be all right. Be good in the end.
They're there. It's what Americans say to console someone. A mother will say this to her child. Child comes up with a bruised knee, crying, and the mother will say, "They're there."
Okay. All right.
I have
Well, thank
sympathy
you
and
for
empathy
being
for
with.
Earth and hope and optimism.
Yeah. Thank you for being with us, and to the listeners out there, we'll be back next week with another show. And also Sunday nights, I do a paranormal show at that is going out at 8 o'clock in the evening East Coast time and 5 o'clock in California. And you figure out your own time if you live in Bangladesh. So otherwise, it's gonna be
Websites
it's
for that.
gonna be a good one. So and